for sharing this. So Daniel Acutt is the founder of Profile Test AI, a behavioral systems innovator. And it's a pioneering platform transforming how businesses, coaches, and educators understand and predict human behavior through profiling. And over the past 8 years, his predictive profiling strategies have generated more than $55 million in client sales and have been implemented by over 6,000 coaches, consultants, and entrepreneurs worldwide. His work has helped organizations improve recruitment, training, and leadership by making behavioral insight practical, scalable, and profitable. Earlier in his career, Daniel played a leading role in making a company public, giving him first-hand understanding of what it takes to grow from startup to IPO. Experience that now informs his mission to help others systemize growth through behavioral intelligence. And through Profile Test AI, Daniel is leading the next evolution of profiling, empowering businesses to design, own, and scale their own behavioral systems. And his work challenges outdated models such as DISC, D-I-S-C, Myers-Briggs, by offering a dynamic data-driven approach that helps companies predict performance, motivation, and buying behavior with precision. As a speaker, Daniel offers powerful insights into the future of work and human behavior, and his keynote, The Human Behavior Revolution, What Comes After AI, explores how behavioral intelligence is becoming the most valuable asset in business, where understanding people is the ultimate advantage in an AI-driven world. And topics, we often ask our guests what topics they'd like to discuss. And one topic that Daniel put forward is making growth predictable. There we go. Welcome, Daniel. Thank you for bearing with me as I stumbled a bit through some of your words. But really lovely to learn a bit more about you. Would you like to share a little bit more about yourself as well?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me as well. And I was kind of thinking back to the bio and thinking there's probably too much information, and this seems to be a habit that I have. Maybe a negative habit is always giving too much information, too much relevance. But this again is the kind of profile that I have. But I think there's a key factor, right? And when we talk about behavioral science or something like that, a lot of people don't know what that means, and it makes people think, oh, that's not for me, whatever it is. But what my whole mission has been about making it accessible, making behavioral science accessible and usable by more businesses, etc., around the world, because there's a small group of businesses that are really benefiting from understanding their clients' behaviors, their buying patterns, understanding team design, etc. And it's this kind of, over the years, has been this stigma around, well, you need to have a professional coach to do that, or you need to spend all this money with a consultancy firm to make sure that you put your right people in the right roles. And we've connected these dots now in making it accessible for everyday coaches and entrepreneurs to upskill themselves and to use these tools with their clients. So that's typically where it comes from. And having worked with thousands of entrepreneurs and coaches, like the biggest success that we've had was understanding the level of mindset and the level of approach or their behavioral style. And then being able to, have conversations at the same level with them has made a massive difference in building trust and also guiding people on their journey. So yeah, it's been an amazing journey. And this year, in fact, next week, our company is 3 years old. So it's an exciting time.
What an incredible journey you've been on. And to everybody, that's the real South African accent, not mine. Okay. Just so that everybody knows. So
but hold on, when I go to South Africa, everyone asks me where I'm from. So I don't know. We'll see.
Okay. I was going to ask that as well. Daniel, it's amazing. I love how you have modernized like all these systems that predict people's personalities. And I think it's important because we're so individual, we're so different. I don't think we fit into all those boxes. And I used to get so annoyed when people are like, okay, this is you. And I'm like, that could have been me. Yes, that profile could be okay, but who knows? I've worked through a lot of my stuff. So it's like, stop boxing me into these kind of like, and we do it as well. If we look at it even from, I suppose, the like the spiritual health perspective. Oh, numerology, that means you're a this number, that means that you're a this, or astrologically you're a this, whatever it might be, or into these behaviorals. And I think there's a lot of information that is important, but I love that you're keeping the human aspect of it in, and that individual aspect with your data. And especially now that we're moving into AI, as you say, the big push to rehumanizing us is important. What actually drove you to doing this? What was the thing that made you go, wait a minute, we're turning into machines. Let's just, where is the human aspect of it? Like, where do we need to understand who people are?
Yeah, a lot of people that you might interview, or people that on LinkedIn come across as they get it right all the time and they're perfect and all the rest of it. And I'm a very firm believer that we all are trying to be the best we can be, and all the people that have been extremely successful in their careers and Facebook and all the rest of it, they didn't design that success. It was luck. It all just happened to be the right thing at the right time. They got the right attention. They got the right traction, the right investment, something different, something interesting. And I think that's a key factor, is that, I've always struggled with this as an entrepreneur, to say, well, everyone else looks like they're doing so well, and we're investing all of our money into development and that kind of stuff. So I think it's the first factor there is that none of this journey is designed to be easy. And if you see somebody online that's like, it's so easy, it's so simple, it's really not. It's commitment, it's dedication, it's it takes time. But where this journey actually came from was, and the reason I said that context was because I didn't start 3 years ago going, this is where we're going to be. I started 3 years ago trying to solve one major problem, which is that over 70% of people hate their jobs. And I knew, through having worked with profiling for over 14 years, that, and so many clients, that if you did implement profiling in the right way, you could solve this problem. People could work more efficiently, you could hire better, people could be in the right roles, people would be more productive in their function because that's their natural flow. So I looked at this and we did research on, kind of dominant tools in the market like Disk and those kind of tools. And I'm really not here to discount them. They're fantastic tools, and they will have relevance in the market. Our goal is not to replace them. Our goal is to provide an alternative and something different that's in the market. So what really happened was, over the last 3 years, we kept hitting, as a business, roadblocks. It's like, we're going to do this thing, and then it's like, okay, we now can't do that. We need to do this, and we need to do that, and this dance along the way to get to where we are today. But in hindsight and looking back, this is the universe guiding us in the way and saying, this is actually where you're supposed to be, because this is where the most impact is going to be created through the work you do. So it started with that theory of, making profiling more accessible, make it easier to implement in the results. And then as we've developed and driven through the way, we've realized that, it's more powerful if we actually don't rely on, generic tools, and we find a way to actually make behavioral profiling more accessible and easier to understand and easier to implement. And this has got us to the point where we can now connect behavioral science to specific outcomes, which is really exciting. So that AI brain that we built allows us to build a test or a system and then connect it to any outcome that you want to measure. And then over time, it learns to then look at how we can predict the results in the future. So that's the general concept of how we've moved in this specific space, and making these tools accessible and easier to understand and easier to implement over time.
Wonderful. I love your initial mission. You were talking about 70% of people not enjoying or hating their jobs. That's a global problem, right? And I really resonate with that. I've definitely had some jobs in my 26-year career in software that it was there was companies I really I struggled in, and most I really enjoyed. I worked with a lot of people that just really struggled, What do you think the key factors are of people, like, what are the most dominant aspects of people's unhappiness with their jobs, their employers?
The major thing is what society's driven, which is, you know, you need to make a lot of money, you need to get into jobs that pay lots of money, and give you the lifestyle that you need so you can live this, you know, this brand that you're creating. And the factor for me is that if you actually did make better decisions earlier on about your career, by this point, you know, 5, 10, 15, whatever years later, you would be in a much more senior position in something that you really love and enjoy. So the starting point and the pressure that we get from our family in terms of, you know, you must study to become a lawyer, or you must, you know, do this or whatever it is great, but it's very short-term thinking. And this results in people working in a job or something for many, many years, and then, you know, becoming resentful. This affects family life. I mean, you know, if you hate what you do every day, you're not going to go home and be happy at home. You're going to go home and there's going to be the smallest thing that maybe sets you off, and then you have a fight with your partner, or, you know, there's such a knock-on effect of this. You know, in saying that. So I really believe that it was firstly based on money, on how do you earn as much money as possible so you can live this brand that you're expected to live.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, I was really interested in how profiling as a concept, as an abstract concept, like, led you to, you know, a kind of solution to this problem.
Yeah, I mean, I had to make a decision, right? 3 years ago. My whole history is hospitality. I studied I was very fortunate to study in Switzerland. I really have a huge passion for hospitality, but I had to make a decision 3 years ago when I left the company I took public, to go on my own. And the decision was, you know, do I go back into hospitality, or do I continue this profiling journey that I've been on for the last 14 years? And I looked at the two, and it was such a difficult decision, because my one true love, or something that I've got the ability to build more credibility and make a difference in the world. And I chose this path because, you know, because of the last 10 years before then, having no experience in hospitality at all, it just didn't make sense for me to go and restart something from scratch. So that's where I had to make that decision to get where we are today. But if you were to interview one of our investors who was there from the beginning with us, his name is Steve, he could definitely share some insights into where we were and where we are today. I mean, it's such a difference in terms of the mission and the first point of call, to then get to a point where, you know, you're now something that really can influence change. And that's exciting for me, because the more people that we can help to understand themselves better, make better choices, and provide the tools to, create the metrics that people can, be dynamic in their positions. That's exciting for me, because that's real change.
Daniel, how has your journey on profiling, what has it taught you about yourself, your own profile?
You know, you mentioned something earlier about putting people in boxes, right, in the traditional sense, and that was the goal, right? If you look back at the history of profiling, it started with Myers and Briggs, and it started because of obviously the Great War, and in the early 1900s, where the government needed to decide who were going to be the people that they would put on the front line, that would drive forward, drive themselves, and not be afraid, etc. So behavioral profiling started then, with that serious notion on how do we win the war. Well, let's make sure we put the right people in the right roles, and that's that's where it all started. So for me, and how profiling has driven me, was looking at that history and going, well, there are many different profiling tools in the market, and how do you choose one to use? Well, you choose one based on who sells you better. You choose one based on maybe a recommendation. Somebody, a coach you work with chooses this specific one, and you use that. It's not something that's ever been decentralized before. And this is, when I think about my journey in profiling, it's always been about disruption. Like, I love causing problems. And when I say causing problems, I mean the status quo, like changing, like going against the barriers and going against the boundaries and all the rest of it. So this, looking at the ability to use this stuff in a smarter way, for me was like, wow, we can really make a difference. And we can really impact these things. If the results are fantastic when you implement them in the right way right now, what could they be if more people could do that and more people could make the changes? So that's where my journey kind of led me to this point in saying, well, how do we make this more accessible and usable across the board?
But what has it taught you about you? Is there something that you learned about you that you were like, oh my goodness, I didn't understand, like that I did this as part of my own journey, right?
It's easy to, I guess I kind of forget that because it was so many years ago when I first started to learn about it. And when I look at my profiles, I did it the other day with a new client of ours. We looked at our profiles from other tests compared to, their profiles. And the interesting thing is that my profile is quite a varied one where I can do lots of things really well, but I've got the timing issue. I'm always late for things. I'm never going to be, ahead of time. I'm always interrupting at the wrong time. I can do things really well for a short period of time. So the lesson for me is applying that to the way that I work. So I know that if I start something, I need to make sure that I hand it over within 3 months. Otherwise, I'm going to start losing traction in that specific area. So profiling has taught me that is really about, what are the areas that I know that I'm going to fail with and what time, so I can make sure that those things can continue without me, etc. So I guess that's the main factor is being able to apply that to everything that we do. It doesn't make it okay that, things are maybe not done or whatever it is, but it makes me think about the type of projects and the type of actions that we take.
Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
It's quite funny. I'm probably the opposite. I'm like, if you just give me something, like give me a year and I'll change the world. And I'll never stop, whatever it is. Yeah, in my 8 years, at Amazon, I left in May last year. Those 8 years were focused on this domain of primarily around recruitment and internal job matching, and developing AI to evaluate resumes and then also match people for internal jobs and external jobs. And I remember a lot of the discussions we hit really early on were about the concept of a profile like this, almost so taking a human, and it's like especially for those that aren't familiar with the domain, it's like taking a human being like me, Jon, and just saying, okay, Jon, there's like, imagine this little ghost of you kind of forming right next to you, and this is the key aspects of you, Jon. This is a profile of you. This is something that represents perhaps your skills, your abilities, your superpowers, your growth areas, maybe your job history, maybe the companies you work for, whatever it persists of you, these key attributes. And I remember what we struggled with a lot was the fact that still today, the vast majority of employers create a little job description of the role of what they think they need, which is really a profile of the people the person that they think they need. And I remember some stats. I'll just be careful of what I'm sharing publicly, but there was things like we checked, this was at a time when there was, I think, close to around 80,000 open jobs in the company. We did a little scan to see what the variation of the first line in job descriptions were, and we found a disappointing, similarity. So many, and I won't share the exact number, but let's just say it was a lot, said, have fun, work hard, make history, and continued on. So clearly, as we started to do analysis, we realized what everyone was doing was just copying and pasting these job descriptions, and then from the outside world, you're trying to take this kind of mirror image of Jon and say, okay, I want to put it into this world of this company, this vast company, and say, tell me which ones are a good fit. And yet, actually, the things I'm being matched to are not like super accurate, and they're kind of just often what we do as humans when we're hiring is we say, I'm so busy, I need more people, quick, write a job description, copy paste, done. And the reality is, like you're describing, with where Myers-Briggs came from, it's like actually that process is really, really important to get right at the start. Like if you don't have good data, you're not going to be able to create a very good, solution for people that are looking for a role or um, you know, trying to enjoy the role they're in, or even be measured on their performance, because the very thing you're doing it against is kind of uh, a mix of laziness and outdated, and also not really true to what you really want. And I think some of the things we also learned was that you don't know what you need until you experience it, right? And we had quite a few exceptions um, in very successful people in the company, very high up, that had very non-traditional backgrounds, coming from HR and going into software for the first time and leading the company. And you're like, whoa, this is really different. This is not what we expect. Or someone coming from automating robots in warehouses to then going and designing the whole company's annual review system. They're so different, and yet superstars, like their superpowers, clearly transferable to those domains. So I was really interested in. There's so many facets to this, and I was really really interested in your thoughts on some of these kind of existing now traditional concepts, these constructs that we use,
Yeah.
and how you what your personal opinions are about them, and the way, like the direction of where this is all going.
I'm really glad that you brought up that story, because the interesting thing, if we look at the traditional recruitment process, is you put a job out, you try and do a job ad that attracts the skill set, right, that of the individual, and then you get these applicants, and we know that probably over 80 to 90% of applicants are just applying because it's a job, as opposed to if it's the right job or not. So there's a lot of I don't want to use rubbish, but there's a lot of like incorrectness coming in from the beginning. And then the next phase of it is you look at the CV. Okay, can the person that do have the skills to do the job? Can they actually execute on the role? And then it's like, yes, they do. Then you create a shortlist, and the shortlist is then interviewed, and then etc. It's a very long process. And traditionally, what's been happening with recruitment is that if you're in a junior position, profiling typically doesn't come into the process at all, because it's expensive, or has been traditionally expensive. And if you're in a leadership position or a management position, typically the company would pay anything from $500 to $2,500 to profile you. So that's the top 3 or 4 candidates at the end of the pipeline saying, okay, these are the top people, let's profile them, let's see who is the best candidate. So that's what's traditionally happening at the moment. Now, if none of those people are the right fit, they still take one anyway, because they've just been through a 3-month process to get to those 4 people. So you choose the best of a bad bunch. If you're lucky enough to have the right profile as well, okay, that's a really fortunate situation to be in. And why I've said that is because we've already been developing with one of our most successful clients. We've already been developing a new way of recruitment. And this is not really public yet. You can't find it online. It's privately designed and privately being piloted right now. But if you created your own profile system with us, we can plug the back end of that into a new recruitment system. And you're going to love this, Jon, with your experience and what you've been through, is that the process we'll take you through is you'll basically type out what type of job you're looking for. And our AI system will create the job spec for you. You will review the job spec automatically, and then you will create the job ad. Now, you could say, yes, but other systems can do that. ChatGPT can do that. But what ChatGPT and other systems don't do is allocate a required profile for that specific job. So if you're looking for a mechanical engineer, or you're looking for a customer service agent, very different profiles, will be successful in those roles. If they both have skills in the same place, you're now interviewing those 2 different people for the same role, because they can both do the job. That's where the failure comes in. So you create the job ad, you create the attraction and the language for that specific profile. An example, if you were looking for a mechanical engineer, you're definitely not going to be talking about, for the job application, you submit a 3-minute video telling us why you love our company. That's not going to do it, right? So it's completely the opposite. But then you profile the people on the front end of the funnel to make sure that when you go through the shortlist, they have the skills, they're the right candidate for the role, for their profile, and then you go through the shortlisting. And that's the idea that happens now very quickly within our process. So within a job going live, you could get a shortlist of the top 10 people straight away as soon as they've done the different application processes. And why that's important is because when you're dealing with a lot of applicants, you waste a lot of time focusing on the wrong people because there's no easier way to filter it. But if you knew that these were the top 10 people that's suitable with the skill set, they had the qualifications, they had the right profile, I mean, that's your hit list. And those are the people you contact straight away and you schedule those interviews with. Because we know top people, they get taken quickly. So it's a bit of a race to get those right candidates in the right roles. And that's what's exciting for me, because that's already stuff that we are now piloting as part of one of our subsidiaries as well.
That's exciting. So there's so much to unpack there, because for me, I've always learned that so I understand that getting the right skill set to the table. And I've always learned that 20% is what you know, and 80% is about personality, right? In any kind of recruitment. I want to know, what are your perceptions in the future where we put mindfulness into not only hiring, but mindfulness into people that are applying for work, just so that we don't so that you do wake up and you do what you love. Do you think that industry is changing to adapt to looking at candidates not just as a resource, but as a person from a physical, mental, and emotional perspective? Do you see a change in the profiling where you're not just applying for a job, but people are starting to apply for jobs because it's in alignment with their passion, their purpose? And in the same way, if we're looking at businesses really wanting the right people in the right positions. And I'll give you an example. So a few months ago, I got to travel. I ended up going to Portugal, and it was one of those really, really early flights, and people were miserable, absolutely miserable. And it changed the whole atmosphere. Flights were delayed. And I'm sure that I could create how much it actually cost if we look at it from a space of energetically, everything got delayed, all the flights got delayed, everybody was in a bad mood, nothing ran smoothly, and it started from that space of check-in, right? And then everybody was grumpy. And I've been on other flights where same thing in the morning, greeting, people were super helpful, all the rest of it, everything just seemed to kind of run smoothly, right? No flight delays, no cost, no nothing. And I was like, this is, a lot of people apply for a job, but if you think about it, looking at, say, for example, shift work, if you're a morning person, would you not put the morning people in that space, right? And put the people that are awake at night in the evening spaces so everything runs smoothly. So it's almost kind of really looking at the human from that space. And even if we took out the travel industry anyway, if we looked at a normal 9-to-5 job, again, my brain works best from probably about 4 a.m. Do anything after 7 p.m. and my brain is I'm not 100% there, right? Where I have a lot of my friends, their brain wakes up from 10 till 3 a.m. That is when they are working at their best, right? So where do we start? Do you see a shift in the industry, or do you see a shift where people are applying to work at their best and companies are allowing for that? Because I see a future where a lot of it's going to be contract work, so that you do work at a time that works for you. So you do fit in, so you do organize. So it's you really are paid on your delivery, but you get to choose that. I know a lot of companies, a lot of positions, you can't do that. But do you see a shift where there is an allowance? Because that's where you get the best out of people, where they're working from, I suppose, overflow and creativity and excitement and enjoying their jobs. Whereas right now it's like you need to fit into this, like this has to be that box that you need to fit in because that is what I need.
I just want to check. I've changed my sound a bit. Is that okay? Does it sound okay?
Yes.
Okay. So I really love that analogy, and I'll use a comparable one in the UK. Marks and Spencer and Tesco, right? Both successful supermarkets, both very big brands. But if you walk into a Marks and Spencer and you walk past any of the staff, everyone is happy, everyone is doing their job, they just can't wait to help you. But if you go to Tesco, their team are grouped complaining about their working hours and everything. And it's it's an interesting thought process, because what are those companies doing differently to create the environment for those people to thrive in what they do or not? And, it's a fascinating approach, because if you look at Marks and Spencer's in particular, they have a very robust development program where they support their teams, and they're making sure that the people that are on the floor and dealing with customers are people-based people. They can't wait to talk to you. They can't wait to hear what's going on and how they can help. And if you look at it from the perspective of people on the till these days, it may be a standard kind of job in the industry. It's a very important job, of course, but if you had people there that are just doing process and stuff like that and not engaging, that's the last experience somebody has before they leave the shop. So if you have somebody that is like just process driven and not people driven, what you're resulting in is people going, oh, she was grumpy, or they were grumpy, or whatever it is, and that's the last experience. So I think that there's a strategy here that could be done if a company was really clever about the experience of their customers and looking at from what do they go through from when they walk in the door until they leave. They would make different decisions about what the customer experience is actually going to be and what would make people come back. Now, let's take this for example. If you were on the till and your last comment was to somebody, would you like a receipt? And you go, no, thank you. That's the end of your experience. But what about somebody saying, thanks for coming, thank you for coming in today. Have a fantastic day. We'll see you soon. Now you leave thinking about that. And you go, when you think about your next shop, you're going to choose a place where everyone's grumpy with you, or you're going to choose a place where you feel empowered and you feel welcome. So that's that part. But what happens when you're in that shop is you then open your mind up to other things that you're going to buy, because you're happier and you're more, you're not just going to go and get that one chocolate bar that you must get. You're actually going to go, I'm in a happier environment, and you're actually going to just, be open to alternatives. And I think there's a key point here, which, to use your analogy as well, Natasha, with the airplanes and the morning people, it's not difficult to do. People know if they're a morning person or not. It's just about asking the right questions and being, who are the better people to put on that morning flight? People know. We all know if we are morning people or night people or whatever it is. It just takes, a bit of planning and a bit of thinking around how we move people into the right positions. So that would be my my kind of take on it. And I love talking about that, because environment does to a certain point, but the experience is what really makes transformation.
But do you think companies are starting to look at people as people rather than as, like, do you think that's going to change, where they start looking at people as people rather than just like an asset to do, like a robot to step in?
The problem with, the problem with
profiling, like, can you, like, do you predict like what's happening, and like, do you see the industry changing from all the analysis that you've done?
I think it's very much driven by people. So if you are in a company that, or someone's working in a company where the leadership and the ownership are just, they're not going anywhere, it's pretty much not going to change, in my opinion. I think that any kind of robust programs will typically be shut down by those people anyway. They don't like change. They don't want to change and evolve their businesses. And we've seen this in the likes of big high street shops and companies fail because just not willing to adjust and change. I think that to answer your specific question around, will this change? I think more people are becoming more aware of what it feels like to be a manager and what it feels like to have people work at their best and people not work at their best. So where change will happen is where more budget and more autonomy is given to those people to make decisions about their teams and how they operate those teams. And if a company, in my opinion, was really clever, they would give that autonomy to all those different managers to try different programs and test it out and see what works, and then measure the results and see which team strategy actually worked better and why, and then apply that from a global perspective. That would be my take on it. And if I had an influence in a company in that sense, it would be along those lines.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. It's Natasha and I's world now is so when I started my company, I had to give it a name, and then when I tell other people what I do, I had to give myself a job title. So it's like these constructs, these kind of traditional constructs, I had to impose upon myself, Jon Binnie, and my website's called Jon Binnie. A lot of my branding's just my name. My YouTube's called Jon Binnie. It's like I'm just me, and it's really funny because the reality behind all this is that people hire people, and people hire Natasha and I. They pay for our services because of us, because of our personalities, because of what we offer. And so much, and I know it's not quite the same in every single role or domain or service, but it's really fascinating to experience it firsthand. Is this feeling of people feel like we're doing right now, they get to know us as humans, and then they find out what we offer. They start to feel about what's the superpower that Jon, Natasha, Daniel has. And oh, do I really connect with that? Is that something that I feel I would like to engage them with, for whether it's free or paid for or however? And I feel one of the great pressures, when you touched on it, Daniel, like some of the great pressures that we're seeing in companies that've been around for a while, right, is that our younger generations, they're like, what's going on, guys? Like, what have you been doing for the last few hundred years? You're still using behavioral science that goes back to the 70s, if not over 100 years ago. You're using constructs like job descriptions and stuff, which don't describe me. And when you get the hiring manager in front of the candidate, they're like, oh, actually, there's something about you. There's something about you that you're another human, and the skills that you're demonstrating and demonstrating in the past that I really connect with. And yeah, I do feel that it's starting to put more and more pressure on these constructs that aren't really going to serve us in the future. And I definitely agree with Natasha, is that the way I see the world trending is not AI is helpful, and I feel a lot of your work is really exciting, Daniel. And it feels like on the forefront of this kind of evolution to begin with. I feel the true revolution is completely removing the job descriptions, completely removing the profiles, and finding scalable ways that help us connect. Because one of the huge things I feel in connecting people is it's all, and AI is not so great at this, right? But you can still do it through AI, and that's the energy behind what you create. So the intention, that how it feels in your heart when you're typing or drawing or presenting to someone about the opportunity to come and join your team, join your company. And they're like, yeah, that feels really good for me. It's not just words. You're not just telling me you want an AI scientist who's a brilliant programmer in R, and you've done amazing work in all these different companies, and you've revolutionized these things. It's the feeling I get when I'm with you, like Natasha's flights as well. It's like, you're a morning person too. This is great. I really connect with that. I really connect with your company's alignment. You seem to philosophically want to help others, not just advertise them to death or glean money from people. You seem to want to help more people, and that's something that I connect with. And I feel these attributes of our human behaviors are things they're more explorative than where we are right now with the way that companies are currently set up. so that's a lot of opinions from me, but I was
Yes.
just interested in your thoughts as well about how this is all going. I know that companies need to invest and try new things, and I saw a lot of that happening in Amazon, which is really encouraging. But where do you see maybe in the next 5 or 10 years? Like, is there a revolution coming? Like, what if you could revolutionize this space? What would you like to see?
Our first, that word that you just used, revolution, or revolutionize. Our first brand message or tagline was revolutionize human potential. And it's evolved to every time we've adjusted the brand or the target or whatever we've been doing, it keeps coming back to revolutionize human potential. But now it is revolutionize human potential through AI powered profiling. And it's the same thing essentially. It's just more relevant to the market. And I think, you know, the challenge we have as a business is that people don't understand how easy it could be. They think it sounds complicated and they're not going to be able to do it and implement it. I mean, we implement systems within 3 to 4 weeks for our customers. So we've taken away all of the barriers of the challenges that big companies had provided so that they can charge hundreds of thousands of US dollars for these things to be developed, right? Why they make it so complicated? Because it's just so much work and it's complicated and you have to pay a lot of money and it takes them a year to do. It doesn't have to be like that anymore. And that's kind of where we see ourselves slotting in, is that, you know, when Natasha said earlier about, traditional profiling puts people in a box, we look at profiling now as taking people out the box. And when you talked about, Jon, when you talked about people maybe not having job titles, etc., I think that, you know, um, it might cause a bit of chaos today, but in the future that will be the case, right? Where people are just all working towards their natural strengths and abilities. This is how everything has always worked in the human history of, in the full history of humankind. Everyone always did what they were good at. And you kind of found out you were good at it because you were good at it or you weren't. Those are the criteria. What the difference is with what we're trying to do here is, or not we're trying to do, but we are doing now, is that we are not necessarily looking to create complexity. We want to shine simplicity. And our customers, or the people that we work with, the coaches, the entrepreneurs, the training companies, the schools, the colleges, all those people that we work with as a business, those people are being given the tools to go and be at the forefront of this change. I'm not the one that's going to go and work in these companies and try and do profiling and the rest of it. I'm past that now. We are enabling our customers to go and do this and deliver that. So let's put it in context. You have two coaches, someone who uses disc profiling or Myers-Briggs, or you have somebody that has got the same skill set, same environment, same everything, but they have their own proprietary system that provides a better and more unique solution for the customer. Who is the HR person going to choose? Yeah, you can just choose a traditional one, but then you're just going to keep doing this over and over again every single time with a similar result. Or let's revolutionize the way that you're thinking about how you work. So I guess that's the fact. And I think, this thought process about, you know, how companies are going to change and evolve. I mean, eventually it'll have to happen. I see this as, the iPhone scenario where you keep your phone as long as you can until eventually the software just doesn't work anymore. And then you have to get rid of it and get a new one, or your laptop or whatever. That's what technology does. So eventually some things will become irrelevant, because the new things become more important. And that's what's exciting for us, is because we're going to be at the forefront of that change.
Thank you. I would say this is just my opinion, and I'm just sharing it because I feel, if in case in the rare event this helps you, Daniel, is that your tagline. I would just say that true revolutions don't exist. They're not predicated upon the existing traditional approaches such as profiling. Um, one really interesting reflection I was having as you're describing the future is, if I if I kind of ignored other industries and looked at Natasha and I's work, for example, I, for instance, on Monday did a very transparent video. I had this, I had a camera in my office here, with two monitors in front of me, and I was using some techniques, including heart-based decision making, to decide some really difficult decisions. Do I start another tier in my YouTube membership? Do I offer this new service? What is the sequencing I do for my upcoming training courses? What are the offerings that I'm giving, and do I enjoy them? Is my heart in it? And will my customers enjoy them too? And I felt really vulnerable doing it. I was like, I've never done this in my life. I've done the practice individually and privately, but I've never shared it. And I just imagined, as you're describing this future, is that imagine we were all on camera. We all had our own little private YouTube feeds, right? That we decide who we share with, but we're always on camera and we're always being seen what we're doing. You know, those grumpy mornings you turn up and you're like, another day in the office, and you're clutching your coffee and hoping that it's going to save you through a day of meetings or whatever. And that 70% of us, like, there's this data constantly gathered, because it's still true, even if it's not on a YouTube channel, a lot of it is recorded, and a lot of the conference calls are transcribed increasingly. And so in this world of, like, I'm a human being constantly generating behavioral data about myself, the constructs just disappear. There's no profile that says what Jon Binnie will do or offer. And yet when Natasha and I, for example, met up again last year, and we hadn't seen each other about 20 years, and like, what do you do now? And it's like, I do these things. And Natasha could have been describing a million different skills and a million different experiences. I could just feel that energy in her heart. And it's like, I don't care what she says, we're going to find a way to work together because our superpowers feel like they align. And it feels like our futures in business is more along the lines of not like super creepy filming each other all the time, or having to record each other all the time, but much more connected with our hearts, and the constant output from our hearts, like the constant output of, like, here's all the wonderful things I create because I love doing it. It's the opposite of the 70% that hate their jobs. Like, I just love doing it, I can't wait, stop me doing my work. It's just it's so much fun. Yeah, I think
So much so, I'll just add another question. So Jon referred his accountant to me. And when I met with her the first time, it was a Monday. And she was like, oh my God, you and Jon are the only people that I see that are happy on a Monday, early Monday morning, to meet with me. And it's just like, okay, there's some sort of a synchronicity that's happening here, right? Which is beautiful. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, Jon.
That's okay. But yeah, somewhere I definitely hope that we don't have all the answers between the three of us, right? But I do feel that we're all on a journey, and I feel like the important work you're doing, Daniel, is like identifying these huge challenges that we have fundamentally in the way we work together. And you said right back at the start, you said it's also in our societal programming. That resonated with me. It's like my parents saying, "Oh, are you gonna go and be a software engineer? You like computers? You could go to America and do that. You could earn a lot of money doing it." And it's like, and you hear all these things, and you're like, "Oh, I should follow that." And then 20 years later, I'm like, actually, there's more to me. There's more to me than just those aspects, and I want to explore more. And I think that's also a huge part of the revolution, is just because I feel your work will also help improve that, right, Daniel? Is that help people explore, our floor is good at, software engineering because they're great dealing with people and through difficult, funerals, celebrations, like just all these things we don't really know as a human race yet, how our different superpowers complement each other and help each other.
Yeah. Well, I think, I really like that. And, one of the things that we are working on at the moment, I mean, we've designed the system already. We just need to build it. And building what I'm going to talk about is going to take a couple months. And why we started with the profiling brain is that when we have the data, we can use the data for specific outcomes. And I don't mean us as a company. I'm talking about the individual, the end user. So as an example, one of the things that's coming is, as we call them, JACK. And JACK stands for Just-in-Time Adaptive Coaching Knowledge. And it's an acronym that we, designed and we had. And JACK's whole job is to give feedback and support people going through any profiling tests that we develop. Obviously, it'll be up to the coach or the test owner to have Jack activated or not. But the idea is that if Jack could support test takers on a daily basis to make better decisions about their life, their career, their approach, preparation for meetings, to be aware of the areas that they just are going to struggle at if they focus on those, and areas that they are really good at. This is what Jack's going to do. And it's going to bring in not just the database knowledge, but draw in wider knowledge from the wider internet base. And what that's going to do, Jon and Natasha, is give people that hand-holding effect, where you can actually have a proper discussion. Because yes, you can go to ChatGPT and ask all these sorts of questions, but they're generic, not specific. You have to go through a psychometric first to go, this is the percentage of your different approaches. And in a comparison for what we're doing compared to traditional psychometrics is that they are, you might get like in DISC, you get, DISC, and you get a percentage of each of those, and it kind of describes your behaviors and your responses and all those kind of things. Fantastic system, proven, many times over. What we are doing is taking that one level deeper into 8 profiles with a percentage of each of those, where you'll be able to see in a very clear map how far along the line you should be with each of those functions. So the traditional sense of profiling says you're this profile and you're these, maybe secondary profiles, etc. Now we are putting the map completely the other way around and saying, well, you have a couple percent of this, you have 20% of that, 5% of this. This is why you can do these things, and this is how you can approach it. So what that data does for us is say, well, when you have a conversation with Jack and you say, Jack, how do I prepare for this meeting? I'm going into this meeting with Natasha, and she is, let's say if there's a team function available, and X, Y, and Z, how do I get the best out of this meeting? Jack will tell you. Jack will say, well, Natasha likes, not too much detail, very high level touch points, make sure that there's, mindfulness, and make sure that there's heart involved in everything you do. Like that type of stuff will help everybody perform better in every way, because you're not just throwing this net out anymore. You actually are being smart around how you approach. So this again comes into more efficiency, more specifics, outcomes, etc. as you move forward. And that's what's exciting for me. That's where the revolution is, in my opinion, is connecting those dots to what the base profiling systems are.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for giving us an insight into your future as well. That's really cool. Now, I will do a mindful meditation in a moment. Wish me luck. Before I do, because I often will make you feel very sleepy after a few minutes of meditation, how can people get in touch with you, Daniel?
The best way is to go to profiletest.ai and book a demo with us or have a conversation with us. You can connect with us on social media as well. We'll respond to everything. So as you know, most businesses these days, you can find us anywhere if you search for profiletest.ai. And yeah, would love to chat to you.
Wonderful, thank you. And I have added those to the description of the video, so please do take a look at those and reach out to Daniel if his work company resonates. Thank you. Well, we'll get on with our mindful meditation, and I'll just mute you guys for a moment as I do this. So if you'd like to join me, let's take a moment to take a deep breath in through the nose, nice and deep. And then breathe out any stress or anxiety nice and loud. And once more in through the nose, nice and deep. And breathe out any remaining low vibration energy nice and loud. Just allow your body and your heart to relax. And I'd like you to imagine yourself, yes, surrounded by this busy, chaotic world around us. I'd like you to imagine yourself creating a nice protective bubble around you. And it's the very love energy from your heart that's just expanding out to be a protective bubble, and it's around 2 meters out, surrounding all aspects of you. And this bubble only allows in aspects of the reality outside of you that are for your highest good. And imagine yourself standing or sitting. You're relaxed and you're observing. And you're observing this stormy world outside of you. Perhaps you're beginning to think a bit more about your own future ahead of you. These can be the simple things: where you're going next to shop or to buy something, whether that's online, on a device, or you're going in person. You may also be thinking about travel plans that are ahead of you, or even your current work, the meetings coming up, the deadlines, the promises you've made, the difficult discussions you've got to have. And beyond that, even further, thinking about your work and career, you may also have some feelings of unhappiness and dissatisfaction, or lack of alignment, or lack of motivation, or just feelings of burnout with your current job, company, career. And through all this chaos and all this busy human busyness ahead of each of us in our lives, I'd like you to take that light from your heart once more and just allow your heart to gently soften and open. And tell your heart it's safe to open now. It's safe to open. Because a nice, open heart allows you to become even more empowered than just your busy mind alone. It helps you connect with all of your true abilities and superpowers. And use that light now from the center of your heart to shine a clear path ahead of you. And as you shine that path towards the ground, and this is not a linear path, it involves twists and turns. It includes explorations into things that you'd like to try for the first time. Maybe you decide that's not for you, and you come back to center, and you go off again in a new project, company, job, career, project, purchase, whatever you're doing. Allow your heart to begin to fill this path ahead of you with this love energy. And imagine this revolution in your life is happening all powered from the center of your heart, drawing on the wisdom of your mind and the experiences of your body, and that deep yearning that you have within your soul about why you even came here to this earth. Why did you come into this life? What is it that brings you the most joy and happiness and feelings of abundance? And as you connect and gather all of that beautiful energy in the top of your heart, allow that to shine even brighter across the path ahead of you. Perhaps, like me, you'll already be or have been in a career, the thought that would bring you happiness. And as you shine that light ahead of you, do you feel that truly in your heart and soul? Or are you ready to face some of those fears of breaking through traditions, breaking through the restrictions and constructs around us in this 9 to 5 matrix that we project upon ourselves as a human race, and allow yourself to feel into more exciting, more joyful, and more abundant aspects of your own growth, your own explorations, including your career. And as you shine a light, perhaps you'll be looking into the future of you, seeing yourself being in those roles, doing those things that fill you with joy, acting on your superpowers and developing them, stepping through those barriers of fear and breaking through traditional constraints. And whenever you engage with technology such as artificial intelligence, you bring your heart to this as well, with the prompts you type, with the text you create, with the images you generate or select, with the way that you connect with others. You will feel the same energy in this heart. This heart of yours is your powerhouse of your own ancient soul wisdom and what feels right for you in every moment. And just allow yourself to continue to shine out through this path over the next year, 2 years, 3 years, as long as you choose. Next time you're feeling stressed or anxious, if your breathing is short and your heart feels tight, take a moment to come back to this space. Take a moment to perceive your future and your present through the eyes of love, through the feelings of your heart, and allow this to guide you to the new world, this new revolution within you you wish to see projected and created outside of you. And when you're ready, with those feelings of joy and happiness still in your heart, come back to your body, come back to your breath. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and come back to us in this moment. Wonderful. Well, thank you both so much. That was such a pleasure. I didn't send you to sleep, did I, Daniel?
I love that because I don't have a long history of meditation. I'm a logic brain, so I've been over years trying to solve things by technicality. And a friend of mine, Jon Abbott, took me through my first meditation with Joe Dispenza a couple of weeks ago, and it was the love one. And I've never had before then quietness for more than 5 minutes. My brain's always been too busy. And I was very shocked that I did a 30-minute meditation, my first proper one, and all these visions of, purple dragons and key messages. And it was amazing for me to go through. So, no,
Yay.
I love it. All good.
Beautiful.
Sweet.
Wonderful. Yeah, it's definitely an adventure using your heart in business, right, Natasha? It is.
Absolutely.
And I think a lot of the times our brains are so tired and overexerted because they don't have the support from our hearts. Our hearts are like it's like closed down, and it's definitely a huge shift for humanity to not everyone, but for most of us to reconnect with our hearts. Because, like you said at the start, Daniel, it's like people are saying they don't like their jobs, and that's not the mind saying that. It's the heart going, I'm so sick and sad here. Like something needs to change. And our hearts aren't just for complaining, they're for all the beautiful excitement. And I love you mentioned dragons as well. They're a big part of my life, my work. But yeah, thank you so much. It's been an honor having you on, and we'll make sure this is shared. We also share the podcast through all the podcast streaming channels. So please let us know if you're interested in coming on as a guest. It's in the description, the link, the now completely fixed form for submitting your bio. And thank you so much, Daniel. And yeah, do check out Daniel's details in his company. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been
Daniel,
amazing.
thank you.
Thank you. Take care. Thank you,
Everybody.
everyone. Bye.